Lemkin Solitaire and Equalizer seeders and planters offer disruptive innovation like vertical banding, dry and or liquid onboard fertilizer, and great prices. Go to lemkindemo.com for more information and to request a demo.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio and RealAgriculture.com. I am Lindsay Smith, and joining me now is Greg Bartley. He's the Director for Crop Protection and Crop Quality with Pulse Canada. Welcome here, Greg.
Hey, Lindsay.
Well, one of these days, it's going to be spring, and we are going to get a crop in the ground, and it's going to be great. However, that is going to mean that we need to make decisions about crop protection products at some point. And Pulse Canada is part of the team that brings us the Keep It Clean program. So let's start there, Greg. What is the Keep It Clean program? And then let's talk about why it matters.
Sure. The Keep It Clean program, it's a joint initiative between the Canola Council of Canada, Pulse Canada, and Cereals Canada. And it's simply meant to be a communication tool to communicate the things that farmers and industry need to know to produce market-ready crops. So that's agronomic practices. That could be crop protection, pesticides, things like that, that may pose a market risk, but could also get into plant diseases and quality issues and certain varieties, things like that. So trying to strip down all of the potential market access barriers and put it into a nice, simple information to communicate only what people need to know in terms of how to make sure that we retain market access into these export markets based on our on-farm practices.
And now it covers several crops, obviously, because as you said, Canola Council, Cereals Canada, Pulse Canada, all involved in this initiative. There is a fantastic website and web tool that farmers can access to go through and look by crop type. Is there anything on the list this year that is new and noteworthy? And then let's talk about some of those that are kind of always on there. But what's new and noteworthy for this growing season?
Yeah, so one of the tools that we do put out is we call it the Keep It Clean Product Advisory, and that's exactly it. Trying to communicate the pesticide products that, are registered for use here in Canada, but could still cause market access issues in those export markets. So it's a list that we don't want to put together. Our preference would be not to be doing this. So we try and keep it as short as possible and only communicate those that you need to be aware of. But yeah, there are a couple things that you definitely need to keep an eye out for. So from a Pulse Canada perspective or a Pulse perspective, there's a new one. We are communicating the product, the active ingredients flunicimid. So this is, the trade name's carbine. It's an insecticide product for typically aphid control. We have added to the advisory just due to some uncertainty in the EU market, just on green lentils only. So it's one of those things that, just go talk to your grain buyer ahead of time. If they say it's acceptable, go ahead and use it. But there's maybe certain situations where, it may cause a problem or two, and you might be asked not to use it. Other than that, typical messaging around glyphosate, make sure proper usage and just make you aware that there are market acceptance issues. And then finally, glufosinate, just recognizing that glufosinate ammonium is not a desiccant for any crop, really. That's cereals, pulses. Just get that message out there that that's not an option due to MRL marketing concerns.
Mm-hmm. Now, and that is something when you go through the list, some of these things it's very clear that this is not something, that you should use at all. And then there are other ones that, as you mentioned, it will depend on where that product is going to end up. So as farmers are going through that, what do you recommend they do when they're sort of working their way through the list?
Yeah, so we've tried to split it out into kind of like suggestions or categorizations, and this is where you get into a yellow or red, things like that. The red should be pretty very straightforward. It's a simple do not use, like no conversation needed. It's off the table. The yellow is really our balance within the industry to make sure that we are maintaining use of these products that we know are useful for the industry, but really targeting it to only the cases where we know the market access issue exists. So the flunicimid example is a perfect example where, the communications on green lentils only, that's just due to the difference in market classes, a red versus green lentil, where the EU, from a green lentil perspective, is a lot more important than a red lentil going into different export markets. So the recommendation is obviously pay attention to what those recommendations are. And if the communications go talk to your grain buyer, just have that conversation, hopefully early in advance. If they can't get you the answers they need, they'll be able to definitely get back to you with those, by reaching out within the industry too. So.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, good advice, obviously, talk to your buyer. make sure that you're working with your agronomist if you're working with an agronomist on some of these decisions as well, because certainly for many of these products, I would assume there is an alternative, or it is a management practice you may have to change. Well ahead of time to manage for not having access to a product. So that might bring up a lot of questions, and that is one thing I do want to hit on here, Greg, before we wrap up is you mentioned that there's the alert every year, but there's also a webinar coming up that for those interested could check it out. When is it, and how can people get signed up?
For sure. Yeah, no, we recognize that, maybe this advisory doesn't provide enough information or maybe there's questions, things like that. So we do offer a webinar to kind of kick this off every growing season to provide that opportunity to get those questions answered. So we do have a product advisory webinar coming up on April 24th. It's at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And you can sign up by going to the Keep It Clean website, keepitclean.ca. And you should be able to see it right on the homepage, the register tab. So definitely encourage you to register for that. And obviously, while you're there, sign up for the newsletter so you get it directly in your mailbox too.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's April 24th, 11 a.m. Manitoba time, as we like to call it this time of year. Because It's not Saskatchewan time this time of year.
Not Saskatchewan time.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. Welcome to the prairies. Okay. All right, Greg, thanks so much for joining me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks, Lindsay.